Hello Tubesters, it's Gav. Welcome to another one of my videos. Today we are looking at another episode in the build of the USS Lexington CV2 1942 from Trumpeter, 1:700 scale. Now I go backwards and forwards on my obviously all my model builds, my figures, my display figures and busts. Oh, you know. It's whatever floats into Gav's head at the time and then floats out again like a little butterfly. So I've got the Lexington down here. Sorry, look at the camera, Gav, not at the model. Yeah, I have come to the conclusion that my ships is something that I really enjoy building. Sometimes I have to take a few weeks off from doing it for different reasons. This time it was getting different figure painting. I needed to get some figures out there for sale. So I literally had 3 weeks where I did absolutely nothing on the Lexington at all, and nothing else has happened on HMS Kent either, which is my modern Royal Navy frigate that is almost, I keep saying it, is almost there, you know, compared to the Lexington. I had said just on a throwaway comment on one of the couple of videos ago that I was hoping to get the Lexington under primer, and then at least some colours maybe down on the base hull. I haven't done any superstructure work yet at all, but this is all fairly new to me. I know I've got Kent, but on Kent, apart from the radar masts and some bits and pieces, there wasn't as much photo etch involved. I've got a photo etch sheet for that, but she's down in a drawer down there. But there's a lot more involved on this, and as we all know, that if you ever watch my Bismarck unboxing and the Hunter, I've got the full, more or less the full issue kit for that. That's got even more. So it's we all know I've got PTSD and other head problems, and I keep saying it's only because I really struggle formulating. If I deviate from instructions at all, I struggle with the instructions to begin with, but if I deviate, like most modelers will say, that doesn't make much sense to me, I'm going to do it this way. As I've said to you before, if I do that, then I go to hell in a handbasket. It just literally, the whole build just falls apart because my head has problems processing stuff. But I've been scribbling down on the side of my instructions where I'd do something different. Not necessarily if I was going to, probably wouldn't build the Lexington again, but for other aircraft carriers, and I'll go into that in a minute when we go down and take a look. So yeah, in the end I decided, apart from where the ship's boats go, again I'll show you in a minute, I'm going to build, I've seen everybody else build a complete ship and then paint it, so I was worried about getting in nooks and crannies, and I still am with the paint on the airbrush, but I kept thinking, well, if I do this, and then I've got to try and get them to stick down, and I'm just thinking, this isn't working. So it's this. What I do always said that Kent and this one were really training exercises, because to see if my brain could cope with all the photo etch. But as I said to you guys, the 1:200 scale, financially are way out of my league. That's the huge ones that people build. But also display wise, we don't know where to put it in here. The 1:350s, which I will build probably occasionally, again financially, because I like to, Charlie Mack brought this up on a recent video, and he said he would do PE, it's just it's so expensive alongside the model, he'd prefer to use that money to buy another kit. And he wasn't having a knock at people that, like myself and others, that use all the PE. And I said on a video, I actually I now look for the PE before I look for the kit. Then if I see that I think the PE, whether it's just a couple of sheets or it's got brass barrel, you know, whatever it's got, I'll then go off and look for the ship. And if the ship's cheap enough, I'll then buy each, you know, and make it, because I just think it just adds a lot. Now, the 1:350 scales, HMS Kent's 1:350, but she's a modern frigate. There probably isn't as much on her as there is maybe some of the obviously the battleships and things like that. But I do prefer the 1 in 700 scales. I like the smaller nature of everything. They don't take a lot of room up, which means I can keep them without throwing them in the bin or whatever. And I just enjoy 700. I know people say, oh, it's fiddly and that, and I agree with you there. But I enjoy that scale. That's my scale, I think. I've got the USS Ward coming. You can tell the wife's out walking Archie, can't you? Because she don't know. But I've got the USS Ward from Flyhawk coming. If anybody wants to dip their toe into 1 in 700 scale, this is a destroyer. I've never done any destroyers, but compared to the Lexington here, obviously they're going to be minnows. It was £20, 23p in the UK eBay, and I'm sure if you're in the States or anywhere else in Europe, the same Chinese sellers. I think it's Apple Shed or Apple something is the seller, which they come on loads of times when I'm looking for stuff. The USS Ward, obviously is old flush deck destroyer, famous for firing, you could say, the first shot in the Pacific when she sunk. At the time, and all right up until the early 2000s, they said, oh well, did she really sink this submarine? It was all, everyone said, yeah, it was a submarine, because obviously other submarines attacked Pearl Harbor and was miniature submarines and were sunk. But they said, did she actually do it? Well, they found the wreck of the sub, and she's got a nice neat hole from the third gun, I believe, on the number 3 gun on the destroyer, which is the one that actually fired the killer shot. Anyway, I digress. But you've got everything in that. She's got brass gun barrels. Now they're going to be teeny tiny gun barrels, but they're brass gun barrels. A couple of three sheets, I think, of photo etch. For a little ship like that, that's a pair. I mean, obviously they're probably going to be small sheets of photo etch, but 3 sheets of photo etch. There's some resin pieces, I believe, on one of the reviews, and I don't know if mine's got it. You even got turned depth charges, metal turned depth charges, and that was 20 with including the postage, coming from China. Flyhawk's a Chinese company. I mean, obviously it's not directly from Flyhawk, but yeah, if you fancy having a pop at that, try going on your eBay, and they've still got some for sale, and that's the deluxe version of it. And that was too good to be. I was actually looking for German or British destroyers from the Atlantic campaign. So we're still in the Pacific when that turns up. I might actually do her before I actually start the Bismarck when this is finished, just to keep me handy, if that makes sense, before we take on the big buy. Well, big for 1 in 700. Anyway, let's go down to the bench and take a look at Lexington. Right guys, thanks for joining me at the bench. Here we are, USS Lexington. As I say, as you can see, completely no superstructure. The giant smokestack, which her and Yorktown, and was it Saratoga? They all had the same, that huge smokestack. I just wanted to go over a couple of things, do's and don'ts. Now, if you remember, I completely stuffed up doing one of those bolts underneath, if you remember. I tried that and they didn't work for whatever reason. So I'm going to actually stick some double-sided sticky tape not tape, like post-it stuff. I'm praying it's going to hold, and maybe stick it down to this piece of blue foam. Now, if you're building these Trumpeter aircraft carriers, what they ask you to do on the instructions is there's the flared flight deck bow area here. That gets stuck on as 2 separate pieces either side. Now, if you follow the instructions, I believe the instructions tell you to build it as part of the hull. And at the time I kept thinking, well, and I was trying to put a straight edge ruler across it just to see if I could keep it flat. I thought this is an accident waiting to happen, because I'm never going to get these flared bits actually in line for eventually putting the flight deck on. And lo and behold, when I came to dry fit the flight deck, she went up like a ski ramp from the bow down. So I would advise you, again, this is me telling people, who am I to tell anybody with my model making skills, but I would leave these flare bows off, and when you come to stick your flight deck down, then marry these two flares up to it, if that makes sense. Because I got all mine down, stuck down, I had to take them all off. I had to manoeuvre these guys around as well, that I'd taken off, and to redo all that. So that was a bit of a nightmare. One thing I haven't been able to sort yet, I might get one of those glass fibre pens, but it's all money at the moment. I could really do with not spending. But should we get a bit closer? I've got to see, at the moment I'm having to keep holding the ship at the moment. But I've got a lot of glue, super glue everywhere, which I know is going to show up under paint. I might just have to live with it. I'll go again. I've been cleaning and cleaning. I've ended up I wasn't going to put these gun bays in with the 20mm Orlikans. You can't really see at the moment, but there's like brass walkways behind them. And I thought, oh no, I'm not going to catch all this, but I was worried that nothing was going to stick down. I think I've probably made the wrong decision there, but we just got to try it as we go, and I'll get better with each one, hopefully. But yeah, I might well have shot myself in the foot. Maybe I should have just done what I was originally going to do, was prime them, paint them. But I've just seen everybody else, not so much on Lexington builds, but any type of builds that does these 1-in-700s, they tend to put everything together, then paint it, and I thought, well, if they can do it, so can I. Now the nets here, these are like wire in real life, I think, from what I've seen on the pictures. Now I put them on at the stage they told me to do. Obviously they give you plastic ones which are pre-moulded on. Obviously the Edard set, which this is, what I could have done was cut all the plastic off that needed to be removed, then stuck the flight deck down, and left these off until I'd got all this all sorted, and then stick them on. But because of my head problems, I thought, I'm going to stuff this up and I'm going to have these all over the shop. I don't particularly mind them being overly wavy. I mean, I'm going to re-stick them maybe better, but some are pointing down or a bit wavy. I don't really mind that, because what I've seen, they didn't look that rigid. But obviously you could do without these being in the way, because I had to fill the sides of the ship where the deck area hit the side of the ship. Again, learning curve there. I think my head is strong enough for me to remove all these. I would definitely do it on another aircraft carrier that has these nettings sides, and then put them on after I've done all this other photo etch. If you can see here, we've got some little ladders that go up onto the flight deck with a cage around them and stop the crew falling off to the 5-inch gun platform below. Again, I thought, I've got to put them on at some stage, so whether I knock them off or what, the water-cooled machine guns, Edard give you the 20mm and that, but they don't give you those, so I've ended up with these giant machine guns which are out of scale compared to everything else, but there's not much I can do there. So there's a little, sorry, you can't even see it, can you? Sorry. And the same with the other anti-aircraft guns, and there's a rangefinders there as well. I had to do a lot of filling on the bow. That could have just been me and my modelling skills. I don't think it's going to, where are we? I don't think it's going to look very good under paint, to be honest with you, but we'll see. I'm not very good at filling, but we'll see how that looks. I might try and give it one more light sand, but I had to do a fair bit of filling there. But that could have been me, definitely. And that's what we've got, really. I was fitting these side railings last night, but my gluing skills got to be a hell of a lot better. I get glue just about everywhere. I've been using that thick Gorilla glue, and maybe I should be using thinner glue, I think. And also there's some up on the flight deck area there I started fitting. And I'm thinking, oh, I'm going to be knocking these off. I just know I am. So I'm going to leave that type of it. There is a few more to go on at this end. And I thought, well, I'm going to leave that. Sorry, I'm going to leave around these these areas here until I've built the superstructure up, and then I'll return to them. I think that's the best way of doing it. As you know, in the 42 refit, they'd taken her 8-inch gun turrets off. She had 4. They took those off and replaced them with just the heavy anti-aircraft mounts. And obviously, unfortunately, she didn't last long enough to get any of the big Bofors guns in and stuff, I don't think. But these little bits of plastic here, these are more of the ladders, but they go all the way down to, they drop into the gun bays and to the boat decks. I don't know if I've got, I think I might have some of my ship's boats. Let's get that down. Have we got ship's boats, Gav? So you get PE for the ship's boats. Underneath there, obviously, they sit on top of. So when I paint the main ship, I'll paint these, and then or primer the ship, and then once it's primered properly with lacquer primer, I'll probably hand paint those and put them in after I've sprayed the grey and the blue. The ship was painted blue, but on the last photographs before she was under attack, like there, you can see all the grey showing through on the lower hull. The superstructure, funnel and everything tends to be more blue because obviously it wasn't getting as much wave action and sea thrown at it, but there was a lot of grey showing through, so I'll probably try and maybe do the hairspray technique and get that to show through underneath. So yeah, one last time, that's what we've got. Been spending a couple of hours a night on her. So we've got all there is some reels behind there. Where are we here? We've got some little hose reels, firefighting hose reels behind. I'll take the firefighting hose reels. There, I mean, they're just open. You couldn't tell that though at this scale. I put these little cages in. There's a little cage either side. And probably it should have actually gone down. I did it upside down when the ship was upside down. I think that needs to go further down. I couldn't see that on the real Lexington photographs that I've got, but they showed it, and I thought, well, fair enough, let's put it in. As I say, I made a right mess of the 20s, Orlikans. Probably this little guy at the end, which you know I'm going to knock off at some stage. He was probably the best one I've done on the whole ship. The other side is complete stuff up again. And we've got the little gates at the end to not throw yourself off over into the ocean. So yeah, that's it. Not a lot to show, I know, but there's been a fair bit of work, especially with I had to do so much. Oh, where did I do it? I think it was on this side. I was quite pleased with that. It's still a bit lumpy, but old Tom or somebody could really do it smooth. But there was a slight join between, sticky out bit, ledge, if you want to put it for a better word, and it took me a while to fill that and just sand it to bring it up to the flight deck. So that's taken a few nights of prattling around with that rather than doing anything else. I need to clear up the supports here. It wasn't sticking properly, so I put some Zappa stuff on, and that was a nightmare because it's obviously frosted up, so I'm going to have to unpick a lot of that before I paint her. That's going to be fun. So really looking forward to it. I really enjoy building this. I think of all my modelling I've done, which comes and goes how well I can do things, and then I get fed up because they don't go well. This in no way is going well. you couldn't say that at all. But I really enjoy my ships, and I know that I'll probably get a bit better. No, I'm not saying I'll get a lot better, but I'll get a bit better over time. As we've all know, that ships out of all modelling is not the most cheapest of any, and that's from 1 in 700 up to the big guys at 1 in 200 or whatever. It's not cheap. Unfortunately, not enough people enjoy ship modelling to make it, that bit less expensive, I suppose. However, the trade-off for me is it takes me a hell of a long time. I mean, when I get round to doing Bismarck, she's going to probably take me about bloody 6 months, especially with all my going off on tangents as I normally do. But when I'm working on them, I just really enjoy it. I enjoy the history of ships, you know, whether it's a sailing ship to modern day. I enjoy them. As I say, I like civilian ships. Never been a big cruise liner fan. I know they're in vogue at the moment in modelling and in general, well, cruising in it. But I like merchant ships. I like trawlers. But obviously being a military guy, military history guy, I love military ships the most. I wanted to give a shout out. I should have said at the beginning, completely forgot. There will be a shout out to the what's it called? The non. Oh, hang on. No, it's too blooming late now. There's a podcast, the non-official History of the Pacific War podcast, something like that. There will be a link to in the description. It's run by mainly a couple of American guys, and one is he runs the Mississippi Military Museum, I think, and the other is an ex-submarine commander, obviously United States Navy. But what I like about it is it's not all rah rah rah, you know what I mean? It's whatever the podcast you get, you tend to find people fall over themselves to try and be funny. You hear it on modelling podcasts a lot, you know, and it's like funny, and I'm thinking, well, I'm here to listen to about the models or whatever, not really. You know, everybody has a bit of humour, including me, you know, when we put them on videos, but sometimes I think podcasts can get a bit trying to make, you know, if we're funny, more people will listen, and you just think, no, you know, in this case it's the history of the war in the Pacific, and that's what I want to hear. I want to hear history. I want to hear they talk about obviously different leaders in the Pacific War, from, you know, Doug MacArthur to Nimitz, and you know, I think it's been going, because it's only like about 170 episodes, but I don't believe, I might be wrong, but I don't believe they've put that many up on YouTube yet. But they're on YouTube, and they've got a fair old chunk of their podcast videos up where they're just talking to themselves or between themselves, and they usually get other experts on, and it's really great. I mean, you know me, I'm interested in Guadalcanal and the Solomons, their campaign, and they've got loads on that. They've got Salvo Island. I'm not sure. I think it was Salvo Island. I can't remember, but they've got, you know, you name it, Coral Sea, Midway, and obviously they'll be touching base on other subjects, the Aleutians and all that, I suppose, as they go. Highly recommended, as I say. If you're into your military history, you're into the war in the Pacific, it really is just well presented podcast. I just put it on, I do my modelling, and I soak up the what they've got to say. As I say, it's they're not out to be controversial. They're not out to be like a couple of clowns trying to make everybody laugh, because if we did that, we'd go on some comedy podcast or whatever. You know, it's just talking about relevant, the war at sea and the war at land and the war in the air as pertain to the Pacific. So a link in the description, and I'll make sure I'll get it, because I haven't mentioned it in the intro. I will put it in the description as well. So please pop along and visit these guys, and give them a sub if you wouldn't mind. Right, guys, thanks for stopping by and taking a look. More on the Lexington, maybe on the Kent. I was vying to get back on the Kent, and then I started getting more and more dug into the Lexington and getting more bits added on, and I was just thinking, well, let's run with this for the moment and get her up to, you know, before I run out of steam again. So yeah, I'll have an unboxing when she gets here, the USS Ward. As I say, I'll give you some information on the Ward and obviously the fateful day at Pearl Harbor, and then later on in her career. And we'll have an unboxing of her. Yeah, that's about it. Look after yourselves. Thanks for stopping by and listening sort of to this stumbling video. It has been a bit all over the place today. I do apologise. Then when are they not? Would encourage you, have a go at shipbuilding in your modelling if you haven't done so. You can. So this cost me about £25, I believe, at the time, and it cost me about another 20. So it cost me 50 quid, probably. Might be slightly less for the PE and the model ship itself. The only other, I have got some more outlay because I've got to buy some crew figures for it at some stage. But that, you know, it's for a 1 in 700 scale. You've got the room to display them. All mine are going to go under little. I'm going to. Oh, all right then. Another expense I'm going to get is I'm going to try and get some little perspex boxes for them. I'm not making huge sea bases. This will be roughly. I roughly cut this off. And I'm going to size it up properly, but this will be the base for my ships roughly. I'm not going to, I want to put them on a sea base, but not you know, having it comes with a sea base, this one, but it's absolutely huge, and I ain't got the room to display those type of things and to cover them over. So but I would highly recommend people have a go at ship modelling. It's you get into the history of the ships, the people that sailed them, the people that made them. There's obviously usually a load of photographic and often video evidence of what you're building on YouTube and obviously on the net. And there's quite often, if you're like me, you get into things like the Solomon campaigns, and you know, you just can go out and get books and read up on the subjects and stuff. But yeah, really interesting. I highly recommend ship modelling. It's a shame that not so many people do it compared to some of the other genres of modelling. And yeah, I'm waffling, aren't I? As always, take care of yourselves. Coming up, we've got I'm basing the French epic Napoleonic forces at the moment. Yeah, epic anyway. French epic are getting based at the moment. I've got some Praetorians to show you probably Tuesday that I've painted up, just 6 of them, but they might as well have a show. And yeah, well, there'll be probably at least another couple of videos coming up this week, more than likely figure related. I've painted everything I can on the heavy guns, heavy armour group build. I'm just waiting to get some Vietnam modern pigment, which I was supposed to send off for, and then I sent off for the USS Ward. So now I've got to try and juggle finances to get some Vietnam mud from MiG and some pigments, and then she's finished. So she should have a reveal sometime at the end of the week. Whether I'll get it through the deadline of the group build is debatable, but as I say, I know that's what I've done it for. I don't mind if it doesn't get added onto a Marcus and Joachim's video at the end. I understand that. You know, it was just, it gave me the excuse to build it and join. There were a couple of nice blokes, and I wanted to at least do that. I don't do many group builds because obviously with my head problems, I put myself under too much pressure, and I often to go wandering off like I've done on that M48 and do other stuff. So yeah, but that should be up for a final reveal at the end of the week, hopefully. Look after yourselves, guys. Hope to see you in the Pacific soon. Please go over and check that podcast. You won't be disappointed. If you're into military history and you want to learn something about that part of the war, the Second World War, I'd highly recommend it. Very, very interesting podcast. And as I say, the guys, they know their stuff. The guests that they have on know their stuff, and it doesn't get too shouty and woo and laugh a minute. They just give you good, honest information. You may not agree with it all. You know, you might have your own opinions on stuff, but it really is well worth put on in the background and listen to as you're working along on your models or your figures. Well, I couldn't have done that any more shout out for them, could I? Look after yourselves, and we'll speak soon on another video.